Once upon a time, in a grand kingdom surrounded by mountains and rivers, there was a mighty king named Raja Vikram. He was a wise and powerful ruler, loved by his people and feared by his enemies. His kingdom was rich with golden fields, bustling markets, and grand palaces that touched the sky. Under his rule, the land flourished and the people were happy. However, despite all his wealth and power, King Vikram was troubled by one thought, his own mortality. He knew that one day he would have to leave behind everything he had built. This thought haunted him day and night. He often sat on his grand throne, carved from the finest gold and studded with rare jewels, staring into the distance with worry in his heart. I have conquered lands and built great monuments, he thought. But what will happen after I am gone? Will people remember me? Will my name live forever? One evening, as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, the king called his council of ministers. They were the wisest men in the kingdom, always ready to offer advice. My dear ministers, the king said, I want my reign to be remembered forever. I want my name to echo through the ages. Tell me, what must I do to achieve eternal glory? The ministers whispered among themselves. Then one of them stepped forward and said, Your Majesty, you should build the tallest monument in the world, a grand palace made of gold and silver, something that no one has ever seen before. Another minister added, Your Highness, conquer more lands, expand your kingdom beyond the horizon, so that your name will be written in history books. King Vikram nodded, but deep inside, he felt unsure. Was this really the way to achieve immortality? The arrival of the monk. The next day, as the king sat on his balcony, deep in thought, a royal guard entered and bowed. Your Majesty, a wise monk has arrived at the palace gates. He wishes to speak with you. Curious, the king ordered the monk to be brought before him. A few moments later, an old monk entered the grand hall. He wore simple robes and walked barefoot, yet his eyes sparkled with wisdom and peace. The king was surprised by the monk's calm presence. Welcome, wise one, the king said. What brings you to my court? The monk bowed and replied, Your Majesty, I have heard of your great wisdom and power, but I sense a worry in your heart. May I offer my humble guidance? The king hesitated for a moment, then sighed. I wish to make my reign eternal. I want to be remembered forever. My ministers tell me to build grand monuments and conquer new lands, but I am not sure if that is the right path. The monk smiled gently. Your Majesty, let me tell you a story. The monk sat down and began his tale. Once there was a great king much like yourself. He was powerful and wise, and he too wished for his legacy to last forever. He built great palaces and conquered lands, but as the years passed, his monuments crumbled and new rulers took over his lands. In his old age, he met a wise sage who told him, True immortality does not come from stone or conquest, but from the deeds we do and the kindness we show. Build not with gold, but with love and wisdom, and your name will never fade. So the king began to help his people. He built schools, fed the hungry, and treated his subjects with kindness. Even after he passed, his name was spoken with love for generations. The king listened carefully, deep in thought. Are you saying, the king asked, that I should focus on helping my people instead of building monuments? The monk nodded. Your Majesty, your throne is made of gold, but it will not last forever. If you fill it with kindness and wisdom, it will remain in the hearts of your people for eternity. King Vikram rose from his throne and walked to the window. Below, he saw his people going about their day, farmers working in the fields, children playing in the streets, merchants selling their goods. He suddenly realized that true immortality lay not in how much he built, but in how much he gave. The next day, King Vikram gathered his ministers once again. They expected him to announce the construction of a grand palace or a new war campaign, but to their surprise, the king said, I have decided to focus on my people. I will build schools so that knowledge may spread, and hospitals so that no one suffers without care. We will make sure that no one in our kingdom goes hungry. The ministers were shocked at first, but soon realized the wisdom in the king's words. From that day forward, King Vikram dedicated himself to improving the lives of his people. He traveled across his kingdom, listening to their needs and working to bring happiness and prosperity. Schools were built, roads were improved, and justice was served with fairness. Years passed, and King Vikram grew old. One day, he called the monk back to his palace. Wise monk, he said with a smile, I have followed your advice, and I have never been happier. My people love me, not for my palaces, but for the kindness I have shown. The monk bowed and replied, Your Majesty, you have achieved true immortality. Even after you leave this world, your deeds will live on in the hearts of your people. When the king passed away, his throne was left empty, but his memory remained strong in the kingdom. The people told stories of his kindness and wisdom for generations to come. Even though his golden throne remained, it was his deeds that truly made him immortal. Moral 1. True legacy lies in kindness, not material wealth.